Hey American literature friends, this is a short terminology video that's going to go into epistolary novel, the concept of the epistolary novel. This is a genre of novel. An epistolary novel, we'll start with the definition in D2L. Epistolary novel is a novel or a story, it can be an epistolary story, in which the narrative is carried forward via a series of documents. Traditionally, in the 1700s and 1800s, when epistolary novels became popular, it would be letters back and forth between people. Sometimes you'd get some newspaper headlines or something like that, but it was often letters or diary entries. Traditionally letters or diary entries, but also newspaper and magazine articles, and more recently, in the past 20-30 years, you get epistolary stories or epistolary novels with emails, text messages, social media posts, other kinds of written documents. This form has the advantage of giving the author an opportunity to present feelings and reactions without the intrusion of the author, so it makes you feel like you're getting direct information from the characters in the story, whether that's some newspaper headline or their direct thoughts that they're writing directly in their diary, so it closes the gap between, it feels like, the narrative voice and the characters. It also lends a sense of realism because it's an imitation of the mechanisms of real life. It imitates the systems of real life, like people writing in diaries or writing on social media. And because the letters seem to be written in the midst of action, so it makes you feel like you're in the midst of action. You read somebody's diary entry and you're like, oh my God, they're sick today, or oh, they're in love now, or something like that. It pulls you into the moment. I'm going to jump over to this other site that explains it in a little more depth. Narrative is told via a series of documents. In the days before emails and text messages, letters were an essential part of everyday life. People, before electronic communication and before radio and television and movies especially, letters were an essential part of everyday life, so it was only natural for authors to embrace this and sort of replicate that or duplicate that in books and stories. The epistolary novel genre became very popular in the 1700s when there were some successful epistolary novels. There's a famous American epistolary novel called The Coquette from the late 1700s. Let's see what else they say here. They talk about famous writers who have written them more recently, like Herzog by Saul Bellow. That's a novel that's less than 100 years old. And Super Sad True Love Story. The two most famous epistolary novels are probably Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and Dracula by Bram Stoker. Dracula is about 50 years newer. It's only about 120, 130 years old. Dracula is perhaps the most successful epistolary novel of all time, but Stephen King's first novel, Carrie, is an epistolary novel. Alice Walker's The Color Purple, we're going to read an Alice Walker story, and Bridget Jones's Diary. And more recently, if you know World War Z, the zombie novel, it's also an epistolary novel. So on its basic level, even though it's, over 200 years old, the form is, people are still finding new and interesting ways to use this form. Like I said, social media, emails, text messages, stuff like that. But it's a novel or a story written as a series of documents, or significantly including a bunch of documents. If you want more examples, or you want to know how epistolary novels work, or want more information about this, be in touch with me. We can dig into it deeper. But that should give you a basic introduction to this concept. On our syllabus, the epistolary novels include Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Yellow Wallpaper, not letters, but it's in the form of a diary. So that's our best example of epistolary novels. The other famous example of this in American literature is Letters from an American Farmer by Hector St. John de Crevecoeur, but that was published right around the time of the American Revolution, 1760s, 1770s. Like I said, if you've got more questions, just reach out and we can dig into this deeper, but hopefully that introduces you to this concept. Thanks, everybody.